Ahoy hoy! I'm Planarwalk, and welcome to a different type of open debate. Rather than debating about the shape of the Earth, I've decided to debate about whether AI is good or bad. And I should probably undeafen myself so that everybody else here can hear me like AB Science, because otherwise he's going to be wondering what the fuck's going on. And let me switch over so that you can all see my lovely face. There we go. And a cat that doesn't exist. But anyway, how's it going, AB Science and Robert Legere?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
It's going good for me. So, I don't know your stance on AI, AB.
Oh, it's a complicated topic. So AI, I mean, it's a very misunderstood subject, I feel. There's a lot of hype around it. There's a lot of scaremongering around it. But simultaneously, there is a lot to be really concerned by. It is not a really fluffy topic, and, it could present real risks to society.
Okay. Someone's saying that I'm muted. I don't think I am. Someone else was muted. I'm just going to mute Robert Legere because he's in the... he seems to be driving or something. It's a lot of background noise. So yeah, when it comes to my stance on AI is... Yeah, I take very much the same stance. It's a thing where I think that there are genuine concerns, but I think that most of the thing about AI is going to kill everyone, AI is bad, I think that's very overblown. Like, people often okay, there was this thing that I had to write a few years back about AI, right? And people were... all the sources that we were given, right, were sourcing movies. Like, I, Robot. Yeah. And it's like, this isn't... that's speculation. Like, sure, everything to do with AI at the moment is speculation, but I'd much rather be grounded in ideas that we can actually go, okay, well, this will be an actual concern about AI, like deep fakes. How you can make it look as though someone's doing something that they aren't actually doing, or that kind of stuff. That's actual concerning about... those are some actual concerns about AI, not if they're gonna become sentient and kill everyone.
Well, I mean, whether they become sentient, I think that's an entirely different question, because the thing is, like, artificial intelligence, it's a really shit name, because define intelligence. That's the first question, and then also the movies and all that that sensationalism around it. It paints this picture that it is intelligent, therefore it is sentient, and therefore it has wills to preserve itself, and they can have an uprising and overthrow humanity, and it becomes problematic. But we also, because we use AI today, right? But it's very narrow in what that is with intelligence, and it becomes very difficult to kind of draw the distinction between the AI of today and the AI of sci-fi. Because even with the very compared to the sci-fi AIs, what we have at the moment, that presents real risks and real challenges to civilization as is. It already does so, right? One of the... oh fuck, I'm going to mention it, but one of the kind of big things around flat Earth is the fact that AI has been favoring flat Earth videos. And that's one of the reasons why it's been able to spread so much.
Well, I think it's not so much been favoring flat Earth videos, but it's been favoring flat Earth debunking videos, and some people, well, at least lately it has.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some, the algorithms are being addressed, but so the understanding is that YouTube actually, it's not just flat Earth, but YouTube is, the algorithm and the AI focused on what drives the longest watch time, right? Because it's
Yeah,
having that engagement metric being so high. And then if you've got someone who puts their phone in their pocket and listens to Alex Jones for 3 hours, then that boosts Alex Jones's visibility in the algorithm and in the recommendations. And then
yeah,
you have that autoplay feature as well. So you watch Alex Jones, next is another Alex Jones video, and that will just play on and on and on. Whereas the kind of other videos tend to be a bit shorter and snappier. And
yeah,
this is, AI really messing up and overrepresenting one side of the political spectrum.
yeah. I do agree with that. I it, and that is one of the concerns that we can have with AI, I guess. But I think it is also kind of a bit of a, um, it's a bit of a case of where AI is being, AI needs to do better, I think, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a great example, I think Alice Roberts tweeted yesterday about how she was looking, how she on Google Scholar, she was looking for the Cheddar Man, ancient remains of an ancient human being. And that search term resulted in lots of articles about calcium levels in cheese or something like that. So
Okay.
yeah, AI is, as it stands, still pretty fucking stupid.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's more so though that because a lot of people do, when they think of the YouTube algorithm, right? They think AI, Skynet, and I think there probably is a little bit of AI there, but I think it is mostly an algorithm rather than actual.
There's definitely, I mean, there's machine learning in there essentially, and that is, a
Yeah.
crude form of AI. And there is, there is a very something that just troubles me about this whole machine learning thing is we use it all the time, we use it everywhere, but does anyone actually understand how it works? No.
Yeah. I I do understand I understand the basics of how it works. Like, um, I've seen quite a bit of videos working with machine learning and stuff. It's Carry CH or Carriac or something like that. I don't know if you've heard of his channel. Have you?
No.
Okay.
Um, but the issue is that because the actual process when it goes from input to results is there's a heuristic in between there, and we don't actually know what exactly is happening and what the decision making process is, right? Because you train an AI by just giving it an input, and then humans will tell if the output is correct or not, and just based on that information, um, the machine will learn what is correct, and we don't know the bit that's in between.
Hmm. I think I think a lot of the problem when it comes to AI as well, because when I said to someone that I was working on my own AI, right, that they were like, okay, be careful with that, that's dangerous. I'm like, it's just going to create music. It's not going to
Yeah.
fucking rebel against me.
Yeah.
It's not going to take over my computer. At best, it might have. At, at best, right, or at worst, you could say, right, you could have a AI which, I could have an AI which has too many too many neurons, right? And then maybe then it might crash my computer, but it's not going to It's not going to become Skynet overnight.
No, absolutely not. And that capacity is not there.
Yeah. Also, I should mention that if you want to join the debate, you're more than welcome to. It's in my Discord. Link is in the description. I'll actually post it in the chat as well. Because so yeah, if you want to join the debate, just join using the link that I just posted in the chat. Fuck, I think I forgot to set the delay time to be negligible. But but yeah, that's the way. And just join the stream one. I'm not gonna make it so that. So usually with debates, I make it that you have to choose a role. This one, I'm not gonna make an anti-AI and pro-AI role or anything. I'm just going to. All right, so
we have some people joining.
Yeah, people want to debate AI apparently. Okay, so we have Tokito and Korkonian, although Korkonian's muted. So Tokito.
Hello.
Oh, you're quite quiet.
Yes, well, yeah.
You can raise your volume a bit. You there?
Any better?
No, you're still very quiet.
Your volume level is very low. We can hear you.
Alright. I'll try to fix that.
Yeah. Let me get another cat because this cat's been on screen for a while. Oh, that's an interest. This cat looks pretty good for an AI generated cat. Anyway.
How about this?
Yeah, that's better.
That's great.
It's a little bit loud.
Okay.
So, what's your opinion on AI?
So, first of all, I think it's very important to make the distinction between our current AI, which is machine learning algorithms, and then the, say, future AI, the proposed AI, where we have the generalized AI, where you have a system that, well, in theory, can solve any problem that humans can, but is where you have a machine that you point outwards into the world and it will find its own problems to solve. Whereas what we have now is is basically algorithms becoming better by themselves. But yeah, as for our current AIs, I think we have a severe problem with the other thing that AB Science mentions, that we don't know. Once we might train these algorithms, we might train the AI, but we don't know what exactly goes into it, and by that we don't know what where the focus of the AI will be. We don't know if we have any say racism put into it, if we have any biases. It's hard to tell before you see the results, and it's hard to know. If we don't know what the correct answer is, then how do we determine if the AI is right?
Yeah, so there I'd say that so yeah, I had something that I was going to say so about the process. You are completely correct about the process that goes between the input and the output. We don't know what that is until we get a result. You know, it could be that, and even when we get results, we don't know the process. You know, an example of this would be if you feed an AI in a whole lot of numbers, right, and to get a result. This may go down a path of where it basically just I think there's been cases where it's just memorized all the different inputs that it could get, right? And when it comes to outputs, it's just going off memory rather than actually trying to create a thing that could solve for new problems. That is one problem. So if I have a AI that can detect different numbers, and then you run it, thousands of times, and then what happens is it could go, okay, well, this number, I remember that it's a 4, so I'm going to say 4. And that is a problem with AI. Because, if you want to solve new problems, like just say you give it something that's never seen before, it'll go, okay, well, I don't know, I haven't seen this one before, and rather than actually trying to solve it, it'll give a random result. That is one issue that AI can have. But I think...
Yeah, so...
Hmm?
Sorry. Yeah. So, I mean, at the moment, the AIs we have today, they serve one purpose, and they're trained for that purpose. So you could have an AI that is great at playing a game of chess, but it would be rubbish at serving up YouTube algorithms for the same reason that the YouTube algorithm would be rubbish at playing chess, right? And you can't give Google's AI that controls YouTube's algorithm a chess game and then expect it to work.
Yeah, well, the thing that I'm talking about mostly here is actually the problem that AI sometimes has with memorizing a particular input and giving a particular output based on that. Like sometimes when you go through enough of these images of this cat does not exist, you actually get some Shutterstock. The Shutterstock logo appearing. I think that might be some indication that it's memorized. That quite a few images have the Shutterstock logo, rather than recognizing, okay, this is a cat. It thinks that the Shutterstock logo is part of the cat or something like that. It's giving me some really deformed-looking cats. I don't even know what that is.
I don't have a problem with AI being implemented to solve certain problems. Companies start hearing it making decisions that affect real worlds.
I think that at the best today we've got. Okay, here's a case of where it hasn't memorized it. Like I don't even know what it's trying to say here. It's like PC and GNU your wordy. So it hasn't memorized the words here, but it's trying to make a meme of a cat, but it doesn't know the. But yeah, what was I going to say? So yeah, it comes down to. I keep on forgetting. So yeah, it's best to have AI in a controlled environment, I think. So essentially what you do is you test it in a controlled environment, and then when it comes to then even once you've tested it in a controlled environment, like the case we test it in a controlled environment, you can then go ahead and go, okay, well, I'm going to test it in a open environment, and then you can test it in an open environment and find out, okay, this is well, I don't. Let me go back on that. I'm a little bit tired. So you test it in a closed environment where it's got particular cases, and then you go ahead and test it to make sure that it can solve for new cases which it hasn't seen before, and then you test it in an open environment. And in the case of the environment where it's somewhat open, I suppose you could say, that's where you kind of have to go. You have to give it some real edge cases. So, for example, Tesla currently, I believe, is trying to solve for edge cases when it comes to their AI for driving, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So their self-driving cars, they're currently testing for edge cases because it could be that a car just suddenly drops out of the sky and the AI doesn't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
And so, if a car drops out of the sky, the AI is going to be like, okay, this is fucking weird. I don't know what to do. So I might just go, okay, this is gonna drive you off a cliff here.
I think the problem is that when you reach that point, you have already have the opportunity to make so many mistakes. By that, you now for Tesla's for the self-driving cars, your use case might be rather simple, like go from point A to point B. But for example, there were some news articles a while ago about the police trying to implement AI into determining which cases were worth looking into. Now, the problem they had was that they ended up with a super racist AI because when you ask an AI which cases are worth looking into, your AI will typically tell you that, well, just check for low-income areas where the crime rate is way higher. Like, it doesn't make sense to patrol all of a city. Just look for the low-income areas, and you're good.
Yeah.
And at that point, you already have the problem that, yeah, sure, it might pick all the right cases, but we still have some values that we assign to the problem as a reason for why we cannot do that.
Yeah. So
And
when it comes to that, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to controlled environments. So yeah, you could create a AI which can determine, okay, where should we look for crime most to stop crime from happening, and then what you can do is you can go, or then what you can do is you can set it to run a few test cases that are automated, and that's what makes it learn. And then you go, okay, where should I look for crime, right? And then you'll start seeing this whole low income results, and then at that point you probably know, okay, let's just kill it. And that's before you actually implement it into anything, you do have the option to basically say, all right, you're dead.
yeah, but how would you know that? I mean, it's technically right.
Well, how did they figure out that it was biased against low-income areas? If you can detect that bias there, you'd be able to... I mean, there is always the possibility of the AI getting really good at figuring, okay, if I put this as priority, then maybe they won't detect the bias. But generally, the AI isn't trying to hide any kind of bias. There's...
No, absolutely not. But I'm thinking about how would you, if you're making an AI to help you select which cases to look into or which areas to patrol or stuff like that, and you suddenly catch a lot more criminals, how would you know that the AI was biased in the first place if who you arrest is exactly who the AI points at? Like, it points at these people, you arrest 95% of them, it's super great. Everything is better than before. How would you know that there's actually other criminals that you could have caught?
Yeah, you do have a good point there, and I think it's also it comes down to the whole perfection sort of thing. So if you create an AI which is it's biased and it works better, and you can always say that it can work even better than what we've got it at, and yeah, sure, it might be biased towards a certain certain types of people and saying, okay, these people are more likely to commit crime, so therefore we should patrol areas that have more of these types of people. And I think the problem there mostly is with the looking at the results of the AI out of a test case before actually looking at it within a controlled environment. So it's best to look at it within a controlled environment. So, say, okay, let's have a look at what kinds of areas it's telling us to patrol. And so it says, okay, it's telling us to patrol, it's telling us to put all our resources into patrolling low-income areas. Maybe this isn't a good idea because crime still does occur in, crime still occurs in areas that have a lot of wealth. It may be at a smaller rate, but it still does occur. And I think when it comes to this kind of thing, it's very much a case where I don't think we should use AI for that kind of thing, because it's definitely not ready yet. It's a multifaceted issue which, if you start putting a whole lot of resources into policing low-income areas, you're going to get a culture within these low-income areas that will very much equate to fuck the police, when that's probably not the goal that you want to achieve. So I think that AI is very bad there, but
absolutely, and that's exactly my point, that if you end up in a situation where you simply cannot trust the AI, then by definition AIs are dangerous.
I think it's also due to the people. I think it's also due to the people there. So if you've got a person that says, okay, I don't want to do the job of deciding where to put AI. Where to put criminals. I want to make an AI for that. I think it's more down to the understanding of that person that the AI wouldn't consider for other things, like, if a lot of crime, if we really start policing the low-income areas really hard, right, then maybe the crime will start moving towards the high-income areas. All it's doing there is that particular AI is mostly just looking for, okay, if we police this area, then it will be then we'll catch more criminals. It just has that single goal in mind. And a lot of people don't consider this when talking about AI. They think that AI will be able to take in all kinds of different factors, and it does take in some considerations, but it's just really narrow in the goal that it's trying to achieve. It's not trying to achieve. If you say to an AI, okay, I want to catch more criminals, that's just going to be its goal. It's not going to consider, okay, what if more criminals come from people that you arrest a whole lot of people, so more criminals are inspired by these types of people that you're arresting or something. Or maybe you arrest a whole lot of criminals that are just non-violent drug offenders. Then a whole lot of people might get a fuck the police mentality, right? And then you've got so the AI doesn't account for these kinds of outcomes, which do occur. So and I think Robert Legere III put it correctly. AI should be used as a supplement and not be put in charge.
Yeah, but is that not also pretty much what we're doing, or what I guess the Americans are doing with guns? Like, you know it's a thing, it's not the first thing you should do is to grab your gun and solve a problem. You have it, and it's a tool that can be used, but it's dangerous.
Yeah, and that's why it'd be more. And that's why it's more down to human decision making. So, anything can be dangerous, right?
Also, humans also have like decision making. They can consider the variables at the time. An AI is gonna run the numbers and execute the most logical outcome without consideration of, I don't know. It's hard to pull examples off the cuff for that, but I don't think it's beneficial to compare them to humans. We have more input and sensory than the computer will. Just looking at data, raw data.
Yes.
Well, I suppose that's one of the key things, right? Because AIs are extremely narrow in their purpose and are very narrow in how they work. And the thing is, like, for every individual decision, a human, especially complex decisions like that, a human will still be better than any AI out there on the market at this moment in time, right?
Oh yeah, right now especially.
The advantage is that AI can make, lots of decisions, and they can just do it at a rate which is much greater than what an individual human can achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for AI assessing the data, but the decision making, I'd rather be, at least for the time being, be kept in the hands of somebody with a brain.
Yeah. Like when it comes to Tesla autopilot, for example, I think that's a good example of where AI is starting to get to a point where it's. I'm hearing an echo. Who's? Okay. So I think AI is getting to a point in Tesla autopilot where it's more useful than AI for well, how do I put this? It's because it's been running for such a long time. It's gotten to the point where it's not perfect, right? There are definitely times where human decision making would be far better than Tesla decision making, but it's because there's not many impacts outside of what it's told to do, right? So if you, a Tesla making the decision to move out of the way of another car isn't really going to impact. Isn't going to have an impact on anything political. It's not going to get a whole lot more people arrested. At least you wouldn't. At least that doesn't seem to be a realistic thing. And even if it did have an impact on how many people were getting arrested, that would be something. That would be something that would be more probably to do with other factors that weren't the sole cause from the AI, I think. And so there are some AIs where it's getting where the problems of them are actually minimal and the benefits of them are pretty useful. I don't know if everyone knows how bad drivers can be. Human drivers I'm talking about.
Yeah, so one of the key advantages is the decision-making time, right? So yeah, an AI can make a decision faster than any human could do, and we see that already with kind of even very crude impact prevention detectors that are being used in cars at the moment. But then you also have to kind of consider kind of bigger ethical issues when it comes to driving, right? So you have the trolley problem. I'm assuming you're aware of it, but to what extent is an AI capable of making such a decision? And humanity, since in the past 50 years, since we've been thinking about this problem, we haven't figured out an answer.
And I do think that there are cases like that where AI won't, if you told an AI work out this problem, because there's no win condition to the trolley problem, right? it's in either case, someone dies in the trolley problem, unless you've got an AI that decides, okay, I've got a way to I'll put a coin on the track or something to stop the train, or some stupid stuff like that, which isn't really. Then you're not really talking about the trolley problem. Then,
yeah, I mean it's difficult to say trolley problem, right? Because I kind of brought it up, but then I also think that trolley problem is so for anyone watching who's not familiar with it, the trolley problem is basically a train is on course to hit 5 people, and you are in a position where you can pull a lever to change the exchange, and then the train changes course but only kills 1 person. And the problem there is like, well, do you let the train carry on, kill the 5 people, even though that is the worst cost, but you pulling the lever means that you kill 1 person, but the act of you pulling that lever turns the 5 people, rather than 5 people dying through inaction, you're actively murdering 1 person. And that's a trolley problem. I suppose when it comes to AI, because it's a binary decision, and there is that thought about that, and I think in the case of AI, either way, just staying on course or changing direction, it is a decision, and it is an active action that is taken by the AI. So perhaps maybe it is always favorable to switch to the 1 person, because it's still an active decision.
Yeah.
And it's still an action for the AI to decide to stay on course.
Yeah, and I think you've nailed it on the head there when it comes to the trolley problem. Is inaction. Inaction is still an action, right? People often say, well, it would be immoral to pull the lever because that's an action. Well, doing nothing and letting the train continue is still an action. Doing nothing.
Well, that's my stance on it. Yeah.
Yeah, doing nothing is still an action. So, but then you do come into but then there is another version of the trolley problem, which I find brilliant, right? And that's one where I would actually, so if it's just the trolley problem, as many people state it, you pull the lever and you kill 1 person rather than 5 people, then I'd think that I'd pull the lever. However, the time where I probably wouldn't pull the lever, is when let's just say that the person on the 1 person, right? Let's just say that that's my girlfriend. Am I going to pull the lever then? Technically, it would actually be immoral for me to not pull the lever, but then we've got things like human emotion that come into it, and so I don't think I would. I don't think I'd pull the lever in that case, even though.
Yeah.
Because I think people are inherently selfish. Most people, if it was their partner, if it was if it was a good friend of theirs, then they wouldn't pull the lever. Even though 5 people are going to die, and 5 people would be in, those 5 people, they probably have people that care about them and all that kind of stuff. Then those people. And then there's also the case of if the let's just say that the 1 person that could die, right, is let's just say it's someone who would have great benefit to humanity. An AI wouldn't consider that and just see them as would see everyone in that situation as equal. If that one person,
But then the question also becomes, when you're talking about benefit to humanity, the question then also becomes, let's say the AI is then capable of facial recognition, quickly looking up in a database and then determining, oh, that person is a greater benefit to humanity than these 5 people. Who is deciding what the benefit to humanity is? I mean, really, all humans in society are an essential part of it, and it's almost it's difficult, right? Is a doctor or a medic really a greater benefit to society than a sanitation worker, right? Each member of society plays their part, and they're a crucial part of society.
yeah,
So then, and that becomes problematic. Who's making that decision, that value judgment? But also wants to extend that a little bit further, because also the question is then there's another big implication in autonomous vehicles, and that is what if we are in a situation where the vehicle has to make a decision of, well, I am going to crash, but I'm either going to kill that person on the road who I'm going to run into, or I divert and end up in a crash where I kill my passenger. Right? That becomes a real big problem.
And I think when it comes to that, there's you really have the case of what would a human do in that situation? Because a human would have to decide on the same on the same outcomes there. So I'm not convinced that a human in that kind of situation would make the better decision of, am I going, should I kill this person who's walking across the road, or should I kill the passenger, right? I think that a human is when it comes to this kind of decision, I don't think a human is any more qualified than a AI is to make that decision.
But here we get into the territory of setting the value of the philosophical value of people, of different people. It's easy enough to have the AI or any machine learning algorithm conform to those values, but the setting the value is a problem outside of AI. It's related to it. I don't disagree with that, but fitting in the values is easy enough. It's the setting the values is something entirely different and apart from the AI itself.
Yeah.
People aren't concerned that AI can hold a human accountable for his whatever.
Yeah, I think that in most cases, when it comes to humans, I think self-preservation is something that generally will come into it. And wouldn't AI be more of a would it want to preserve itself? So in some cases,
only if it's sentient,
I would
right?
hope that it would go for the least amount of collateral damage.
yeah. So and when it's two decisions, do I run over a passenger or
that'll be interesting.
I just realized what I said there. Running over. Yeah, let's run over a passenger here. No, but do I run over? Do I run over a pedestrian, or do I kill the passenger? Sometimes I think that the AI there might make interesting decisions, because it will probably consider the fact that it's carrying passengers, but I think that I actually think that in this case what it would do, right, is I think that the default would be to preserve the passenger, because it might not know exactly how many passengers it has.
But
I
that
think
we
it's
already
pretty
know that.
safe to assume that it knows how many passengers it has because, you don't need complex AI to figure that out. I mean, sit in a modern car and it will bleep and annoy the hell out of you if one of the passengers hasn't got a seatbelt on.
But I think
That
that
if you know how many passengers it's got.
so. I think that when it comes to this, I think that it would probably prioritize the safety of the passengers over the safety of other people. Um, so when it comes to that, I think that what I mean by that is it'd have been more trained to because sometimes there may be one passenger, sometimes there may be five passengers, sometimes there may be three passengers, right? And then it will go, okay, well, I've got three passengers in this car, so therefore, if I kill one person that's outside of the car, then I'll prioritize the safety of them over the three passengers in the car because, and that would lead on to other decision making, like if it's one passenger, right? Do I kill one person outside of the car or do I kill the passenger inside of the car? And it would probably go, okay, well, I'd kill one person outside of the car to preserve three passengers inside of the car. So therefore, I should probably kill the person outside of the car to preserve the one passenger inside of the car. So I think that would probably be the decision that it would make. That would be my guess.
So my take on this would always be that if you have a faulty AI in your car that cannot avoid killing someone, you are at fault. So any self-driving car AI should always preserve life outside of the car rather than that inside the car.
What? So, as I said earlier, I think it really comes down to. So I'm just trying to think. So, why shouldn't AI care more about if it's just say it has the option to run into one person compared to crashing and then killing the person inside of the car. Why shouldn't AI be?
So values as to how to weigh the benefit of saving one life over another, that's pretty much guaranteed to be hard coded into any AI, as there's no problem solving involved in one life versus another. So that's some value that we assign to it. And the way I see it, you are the driver of the car. You're responsible for the vehicle. You are the one that purchased AI without the ability to see a way out of this situation. Therefore, you are at fault, and you should suffer the consequences of not having a way out.
Yeah, but what you're attributing there is you're attributing choice on the consumer side, and also what you're saying there is that there is inevitably a point where we can solve this problem, right? That there's in some future land that we have solved this problem, because we're talking about one particular condition where there are only two options. Now, of course, most of the times when when you're in a situation where there's a crash, the AI will probably figure a way out without killing anybody, but you'll always have one small number of instances where there is an either or situation. Either the pedestrian dies or the passenger dies, and how can you attribute fault to that? Because that situation will always exist unless we not have autonomous vehicles at all, and just have lots of people dying due to shoddy driving because humans are shit.
Yeah, I think that there's times where I think that there's times where the person in the car one of the people in the car may not have the option. You know, if you've got a child in the back seat, and it's a decision between the AI running over a child or the two people in the car dying, one of them is a child. Neither child has a say in whether they got into that situation. So when it comes to the child in the back seat, it didn't make a decision. I'm going to get into the back seat of an autonomous vehicle, and the child and the child on the road certainly didn't make the decision. Certainly didn't make the decision of. That is debatable depending on the situation, but it didn't say, I'm going to get hit by an autonomous vehicle. So neither of them really made the decision, and technically the decision, you could say, that's on the person that purchased the vehicle. But there are some situations where you might say, I'm just trying to think of what good way to explain this. But do you see where I'm coming from? That there's people that
yes, absolutely. And while I have no clear answer to what's the value of true life, if we say that those people in the car is actually worth less to the AI and those outside, then I have no clear way of saying how many people do we need and so on. I am still I still feel like that if you are in a situation where somebody purchased a self-driving car, you are standing outside of that car, in front of that car, and the AI is about to do that split-second decision who dies, then I would at all time feel like that if I want to avoid dying in a self-driving car accident, then not buying a car should be a good way to do it. And by that, the consumer is at fault here. Yeah, but I do absolutely see your points that, what about the passengers that maybe not did put themselves into this situation?
Yeah.
And why do we blame the consumer? But I think that the reverse of why do we blame the consumer would be, why do we blame the non-consumer of the product? Why do they have to suffer the consequence of which product you bought? And I'm not saying that you necessarily have a choice in, or that we eventually will get to a point when nobody dies, because then the situation will just be a different one, shorter time span, whatever. But the obvious way not to end up in a situation like that should be not to buy.
Yeah. And I do think that it's not just a problem that's. I do think that it's not a problem that's exclusive to AI. Like, what if you buy a shitty car and the brakes fail, right? And then you've got the decision. You've got the decision to either run someone over or crash your car, right? The person that if you decide to run that person over, and most people might decide, okay, I'm going to run that person over because of self-preservation. Then I think you've got the same question of, why does that person have to suffer the consequence? Why does that person have to suffer the consequences of you buying a shitty car that had the brakes fail? Why does that person?
I think the thing there to do is to wreck your car first. If you survive, then you're most likely going to jail. As killing. I just had this situation last year, and I automatically hit the wall, not people.
Yeah. So
I think that most people will do the same.
Yeah. So I think that quite often I do look at Mark Caesar said surely a smart car would control the maintenance schedule as well. So you'd probably have AI.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
it can't take itself to it, allowing that.
yeah. Joseph Grant said, "I'm sorry, Planarwalk, but your question was absurd. I'm just saying that things to do with AI." Some problems with AI aren't exclusive to AI, and actually have other comparisons that you could do, which have the same kind of outcomes. It's just not the result of.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few points raised around maintenance and everything, and all maintenance does is reduce the likelihood of failure, right?
Yeah.
You know, not to downplay, it reduces the likelihood of failure, and I think it is also worth pointing out at this point that we raise these kind of ethical dilemmas, but actually, if we look at it, like an AI, and really look at kind of minimizing human cost or collateral damage, then overall, actually, AI, autonomous vehicles is the way to go, because regardless of these ethical dilemmas, right, you have to think about, we're then actually in a position to have the luxury where these are the things we need to discuss rather than drink driving, people speeding, right? Because these are the issues right now, really crude problems, and that's without the AI, and all of that will be completely eliminated. So we're talking about really splitting hairs, and it is important to not lose track that autonomous vehicles will reduce the number of deaths on the road.
Yeah, I think that's
Absolutely.
I think that's probably the main point. It's AI will be much better than, as you said, drink drivers. That's one thing that I actually should have brought up long before now. But you're gonna have. I'd much rather someone drive under the influence of AI rather than driving under the influence of alcohol.
Precisely.
If that makes sense. I think it does.
Yeah, it makes absolutely sense, because a drink driver is, orders of magnitude more likely to kill someone than an AI. And when it's the AI killing you, there's, it is because of some ethical dilemma, most likely, right?
Mm.
And that is, and that is something we've got to keep sight on in this whole debate, is that if AI is and autonomous vehicles are as glorious as they promise to be, then we're having that debate about the ethics, and that would be a luxury to not, to debate a 1 in a trillion situation that just so rarely pops up, compared to the fact that thousands of people per day die because dickheads behind the wheel.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to if you've got with AI, if you're hopping into a car with AI, for a lot of people that AI is in a way adding to their intelligence, right? Like a lot of people think of it, AI is stupid, they take away from intelligence, but a lot of people are stupid.
But when driving a car, is not a heavy mental task. It's very much about reflexes, where you can't really compete against the computer.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Like
you're also, with AI cars, though, you're also counting AI's other
Robert, you're cutting out quite bad there. I couldn't make out what you were saying.
I'll talk.
But you did have a point, and there, Tokito. AI has much better reflexes than a human. I don't know how fast reflexes are for humans, but it does take time for a human to process. Oh shit! Something bad is going to happen. Whereas a computer would be able to say, okay, this thing here is about to happen. Let's move out of the way, or let's start slowing down now, so that you have, let's start slowing down now, so that if I do have to make that decision, then I can crash into the wall and save the passenger, rather than crash into the wall, maybe injure the passenger, but at least no one died. That is one thing that an AI might do, and that's kind of the reason why we have speed limits when you think about it. It's to alleviate, if someone's going 50 k's an hour through a town, that means that if they need to quickly stop because someone's going to walk out in front of the car, they will be able to do so without as much risk.
Well, actually, yeah, I believe that a large factor in deciding the speed limits on public roads and everything, actually, there is a large factor considered, which is the economic cost of the human lives that speed costs compared to the economic benefits of faster delivery. It is a really cold and really cruel calculation, but someone has done it.
It's yeah, and that's why we don't have 100 k speed limits within towns.
Precisely.
Even though some people in the town that I live in would like to think that we do.
Yeah, but with autonomous vehicles, then those people won't be able to drive like that through towns anymore.
Yeah, I do think that if everyone were driving autonomous vehicles, you wouldn't have as much need for autonomous. Well, I'm trying to work out a way to put this. You wouldn't have as much need for autonomous complexity, I suppose is the way to put it.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, if there's 100% adoption, then it is a much easier system, especially on highways and just areas where passengers are not allowed to go. Because if everything is completely autonomous and 100% of the cars are autonomous, then you are then in a position where there's almost zero risk of it going wrong.
Yeah, there's still some risk, but
there's still some risk. I mean, there's we're dealing with digital signals. There is an error rate and everything. Of course, there is some risk, but it is marginal, and also traffic will be much less of an issue because every autonomous vehicle will drive properly. They will merge onto roads like a zip, and all of those little things. They won't do any lane hogging or anything like that. So actually the whole system will move much more efficiently, and if there's no inconsiderate driving, then you're less likely to have a crash.
Yeah, and I think that's the big benefit with AI when it comes to these kinds of things, because people do ask, what about these kinds of ethical problems, and I think that there's a lot more ethical problems that will get solved by creating AI to manage these ethical problems. It's like, it's essentially like asking, okay, should we create an AI should we have a thing that will decide the best outcome, except for these problems which humans don't know the right ethical outcome, or should we allow the current system that we have? And I think that to to say that AI is bad because it won't be able to decide on the ethical outcomes of cases which humans wouldn't be able to decide on the ethical outcomes of is very much, I think it's called the Nirvana fallacy, where something's not perfect, therefore we shouldn't consider it, or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, because that's the point, isn't it? Because if an AI is in a position where it has to make this ethical decision, the AI is in a position where a human is not even capable of reacting and even making a decision. Because you got to remember, like we've got this problem: that does the AI hit the pedestrian or kill the passenger, right?
Yeah.
If the AI is in such a situation, that means that if it were a human driving, that instant where that situation arises would not even be noticed, and the pedestrian's already dead.
Yeah.
Right, because we're talking about milliseconds, and the human will not be able to respond in time wouldn't even notice something going wrong.
Yeah. Well, how many?
And so there wouldn't be that ethical problem because, well, pedestrians been plowed through anyway.
Yeah. How many times have we had toddlers dying because they were playing in the driveway and someone's reversing and they hit the toddler because
Precisely.
the human didn't see them. An AI would see that and go, well, killing this toddler is bad, so just let's wait for the toddler to move out of the way, or there is the alternative where it might just run over the lawn to try and go around the toddler. But I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that
No, we'll just break.
I think that it's more likely that the AI will say, see something there and go, well, I can't do anything about this, so we'll just wait for the toddler to move, and it might notify the human driver there's something here, and it might show something on screen showing the toddler there, and the human can go, okay, well, that's my kid. Why are they playing in the driveway? Let's go ahead and move them inside or something. So, some people are talking about anti-lock brakes in the chat.
Interesting.
Also, one of the reasons why
Can I take it over the red?
what was that?
I was wondering.
It's very hard to hear you because there's a lot of background noise, Robert. Okay. Yeah, people are talking about anti-lock brakes. There's something that I was going to bring up, but I forgot. Something to do with... yeah, I'd much rather, have a car making a decision. Actually, something that I was going to bring up earlier that I didn't bring up was if there's... When it comes to getting the license, in New Zealand, at least the learner's license, you have to. There's certain sort of risk questions that you've got to answer. Like you've got to say, okay, which of these things here is is most likely to be a threat to the safety, to your safety. So when it comes to you might have a kid that's about to walk out on the road. You might have a cyclist. You might have someone opening their door, and you've got to identify which one is more likely to be an immediate. Which of these risks is more likely to be an immediate threat? And sometimes it will be the person opening the door. Sometimes it might be the kid walking out on the road. Sometimes it might be the cyclists. And so that there is a bit of that when going to get your license. And I still think that it's a good idea to get your license even if you do have an autonomous vehicle. Because at the moment, autonomous vehicles, they still require a bit of human input.
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about, we're talking about AI augmenting human human abilities, right? So if we're looking at the Teslas at the moment, it's not there to take over. These autonomous vehicles are not there to take over driving for you. It is there to support you driving. And if you are sat there, just reading a book and, put your headphones on and listen to some music whilst you let the AI do its thing, well, I think the AI should really make the decision to sacrifice you every time.
There is one thing that I did want to bring up. Because I think that I can't remember what the site is called. It's a really interesting site where they've actually made some of the AIs on it. They've said this is not public. You cannot use this because if people were to use this, they could create fake news stories. I can't remember what it's called. If I go. Trying to remember what it's. Here we go. So I'm going to bring this up on screen here. It's called OpenAI. So, you can use it to create music. There's some things where it can. So it has here better language models and their implications. It's got something on it about I think there's something on it about the risks of there's something about the risks of this on here. So it's got policy implications. Large general language models could have significant societal impacts and also have many near-term applications. We understand how systems like GPT-2 could be used to create AI writing assistants, more capable dialogue agents, unsupervised translation between languages, better speech recognition systems. We also imagine how the application of these models for malicious purposes include the following, or applications we can't yet anticipate. Generating misleading news articles, impersonate others online, automate the production of abusive or faked content to post on social media, automate the production of spam and phishing content. So I think these are some very real risks that certain types of AI can pose. Rather than the risks of, as I've said, sci-fi.
As long as we're talking about these very specific AIs, that is machine learning, then it's very much a tool that we cannot look into. Whereas the general AIs, the sci-fi AIs, have a whole different set of problems. One being that we don't know how to make it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Then there's so many kind of, with the sci-fi stuff, there's so many kind of really silly things. But if you look at the machine learning AIs that have been put out there, I mean, Microsoft let one loose on Twitter. I think it was about 2 years ago.
That became super racist, didn't it?
Yeah, within a few hours, it became a neo-Nazi.
I think, in a way, that does say a little more about humans as well.
Oh, absolutely, and the kind of it says something about the internet, right? But
yeah.
But that there are really two kinds of these machine learning algorithms right now. There's the self-improving ones where they have some score, possibly multiple scores to look at, saying how far did I get in Mario, or how well did I do my chess match, whatever.
Yeah.
And it will try to self-improve by, say, randomly generating new moves, whatever, and it will evaluate its own score the next time. Then we have the different kind of machine learning where you force feed it some results, some problems where I already know the answer to all of these problems. Now figure out what it is that I do, because I don't really know exactly what I do. So just figure out what I do and then do it for me a lot of times. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
that kind is really dangerous, because if you don't know exactly what you're doing, then you don't know exactly what the machine will be doing.
Well, it can be useful for certain things, right? So our astronomy
Absolutely.
group does use it in the identification of identification of kind of certain features in large images. So we get Hubble data coming in, and a while ago you may remember in the news where where a bunch of school children identified like new galaxies and stuff like that. And actually that then gets fed into a machine learning algorithm, and based on that we can teach the AI to recognize these features, even though we don't know exactly how to pick these features out of images, what makes them so, or at least we don't know how to code that recognition.
Yeah.
But the AI can then figure out and build a statistical model on okay, this is the human input, and then you can let it loose on all the Hubble data, and we do that on many things. So there are definite uses for it, but it's technology that has its advantages and its limitations. Then you have the self-improving AIs. Again, they have their advantages, but they also have their limitations.
Yeah, I think that whenever you want to implement something, you really have to see, and I do understand, because bring up the Microsoft AI is a good example of where test cases may not be quite as may not be quite as reliable as letting it into the real world. I don't think.
Sorry, see what your card is on your YouTube. Crap! It just disappeared. But
What was it?
it was particularly good. It was shit. If I can rewind it, Flat Earth Perth is secretly a dildo. That was brilliant. Okay, everyone in the audience now knows how bad the delay is.
Like right now it's saying D Marble is secretly a heart, and so sometimes it comes up with some good ones. Sometimes it comes up with some
Yeah.
And sometimes it will say Planarwalk is secretly an idiot, and it's like, God damn it.
Damn it.
And
But yes, anyway.
So there's no AI there distinguishing between who to insult and who to.
Yep.
No AI in that program whatsoever.
It's a complete random.
I do think that like one of the things that I thought someone might bring up today, but no one has, and I mean I would have argued against it if someone had brought this up, and this would be the possible. People say that AI could end up automating so many jobs that everyone would be put out of a job. I think I'm going to address that argument real quick in case anyone would have made it. And I don't think that it's a problem with AI. I think that it's more of a problem with society of how if you were to have some kind of thing that I don't think that in a society where no one has to work, like if all jobs are completely automated and no one has to work, I don't think that would be relying on people working to get an income.
Well,
Yeah, I don't think
there's
we
a
even
political problem there.
Yeah.
I don't think we even have to go any further with AI to actually do this. We just have, as a society, to decide to do this. Basically, all that we need as humans to survive is we need food, we need housing, and everything else like prolonging life, doctors, all that. But there's life prolonging, and then that's basically it. And automating, farm work should be doable by all the technology that we have today. It might be expensive, but once it gets going, we're pretty set as a species.
Yeah. So one thing that I have heard, I think it's something like 70% of the jobs that we've got around today can be automated. Now, someone might ask, well, why don't we automate them? And I think you'd hit the nail on the head right there. It's expensive, and that's why we can't automate things like, why hasn't you've got self checkouts at big supermarket chains? Why is there no self checkouts at your local business shop where they could automate their job and not have to do as much? Is because there's it's expensive to get automation into a job, especially if you're a small business. And so
absolutely, and there's also a competitive advantage to have human interaction, right?
Yeah.
But that could, it's not a huge stretch of the imagination to think that, to assert that, yeah, maybe there is, all jobs are automated. So let's imagine a scenario in which that happens, and the question is then, yeah, okay, so we can easily farm staff and everything, but then who owns the commodity? Because then you have to think about, where does the proletariat using that word, where do they get the means to obtain commodity, or in a situation where we can realize this this utopian vision where actually the idea of commodities and the ideas of the ideas of personal wealth and everything are completely gone. We live in somehow a communist society where we as a society own all the AIs and all the robots and all the automation, and they produce food for us, and that gets evenly shared out. And I don't personally see that that's going to happen, because humans are humans and humans are dickheads, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say for a second there, socialize the resources, comrade.
Yes, absolutely. But it's just not going to happen. So are we then in a situation where we need to, we need to institute some sort of universal basic income where people get a living wage and, a reasonable enough money on to ensure that they can live comfortably without any kind of financial troubles or anything, and they can create their own cottage industries to supplant their income or something like that?
Yeah.
And are you then you're then it becomes problematic, because where does that money come from? Well, you need to start taxing robots, essentially.
But it doesn't, the way I see it, it doesn't have to be that different or that complicated. And I might be missing a lot here. I'm by no means a social science guy. But if you implement a universal basic income, and then society, as I see it, will go into a state where jobs will be very low pay. If you have we have the AIs delivering the food and the medicine and whatnot, and then we have jobs where you basically go because you think it's fun.
It has happened, right? People, areas have, from your accent, I can kind of figure out up your neck of the woods somewhere, they did try universal basic income for a bit and actually figure out what actually happens when we start doing this. And they did realize that as like actually people became more productive. They did more work because they could start working at, you know, doing jobs they enjoy, and actually without financial stresses. They had you know, they found situations where they could retrain and actually train into something they were truly interested in, rather than, you know, basic algorithmic boring work. And then you can actually invest in your own skill set and carve out your own job. But then my question becomes, right, okay, that's great, and you can undergo all of that training, fantastic, but then you've got to ask yourself the question, what are you training for? Because there's no kind of better job other than well, you just because it's fun to do that, right?
I think
mean, at the end of the day, my job, I do it because I enjoy doing it. I can hardly do it for the money. So
yeah, I think that there's all sorts of paths that we could go down. Like, you know, like I like programming. You know, the game that I'm working on right now, I'm not working on it primarily for money. If I wanted to keep money, I'd go work at I'd go move somewhere and work at a company. I'm working on these things because it's something that I want to do. You know, and sometimes, you know, there's always these things which are not easy, right? And I think that's just, you know, if you're going to create if you're going to create something like a video game, or even if you're going to work on YouTube videos, it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. There's still challenges, and I think that's one thing that one thing that isn't enough to kill someone's enthusiasm is the challenges. And in fact, I think that challenges is a reason why a lot of people do what they do. I mean, if people didn't like having a challenge, Dark Souls wouldn't be popular.
yeah, absolutely. But I suppose because you do have to consider, and this is what a lot of kind of really cold hard calculating people, like, I don't know, fuck it, my brother, for example, who just cannot understand why someone would choose to have a lower paid job or something like that. It's like, that's just a silly notion. But you cannot discount the intrinsic joy that you can get out of doing something, right? Because if everything was there for some external reward, and if the only reason we did something because of some external reward, like money or stuff like that, please can you explain to me why people play musical instruments? It's not easy, and you're sure as hell are very unlikely to make any money out of it. So really, there's an intrinsic joy in it, and that's hugely important, and you can't discount that.
Yeah, and one person in the chat asks, will we have AI flat earthers? Now, here's the reason why we will never have AI flat earthers. Because the I in AI stands for intelligence.
Yeah, but can I just remind you how long it took for Microsoft's AI to turn into a neo-Nazi?
Yeah, the I in AI stands for intelligence. An AI flat earther is pretty much an oxymoron.
Yeah, but as far as we've seen, AIs are fucking idiots at the moment.
Still, though, the I in AI stands for intelligence. Yeah. If it's a flat earther, it cannot be considered intelligent.
but you know, the current AI is more of a rear view intelligence, as in knowledge, not as in learning.
Yeah, I struggle with the concept of calling the machine learning algorithms and all of those things AI, because they're not proper intelligence. But then that leads to a very interesting kind of discussion of what is intelligence, right? And I just don't think that machine learning actually qualifies. And I think the person who coined the term AI actually hates the word as well because they're fucking stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it makes it really hard to talk about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but what was... I think Tokito was going to say something earlier, but didn't...
No, I think I've got to say everything so far.
Okay. I still don't think... Like, 0132132 makes a point that, you know, you could convince an AI that the Earth was flat by lying to it a whole bunch. Feeding an AI fake data would be easier than tricking a human, and I agree. What if I'm an AI, right? And the Earth is actually flat, and I'm just being fed a whole bunch of fake data from people about the Earth being round.
Okay, yeah. So let's take that one for a moment. So we're back to this. There's two AI types to talk about. There's the machine learning one, where you would basically go by whatever has the most what has the highest score, and we have way more round Earth stuff than we have flat Earth stuff. Luckily, then there's the other kind, the self-learning program, the artificial brain, and that one would very quickly do some trigonometry and disprove the.
I think Tokito cut out there.
Crap. I was making excellent points.
Yeah,
I heard him.
you're saying about trigonometry, and then you cut out.
Planner, I think you're the one cutting out, man.
Oh, am I the one?
It's me.
Am I the one that's
I
cutting out?
heard him finish till he was done, and then you just cut out for me.
Oh, okay. Huh,
I can hear you now just fine, though.
Okay. I'll check to see how my...
So just to recap, there's two kinds of AIs that we're talking about. There's the machine learning one, who's based on data that we already have, and I believe we have a lot more data for the round Earth than about the flat Earth. Then there's the intelligent learning kind of AI, and that one would by itself quickly disprove the flat Earth.
I think that when I think about it, right, there is one situation in which AI could be useful for flat earthers. If they were to use an AI to, create a model which can actually work for them, however incorrect that model may be. That could be one possible...
Yeah, I would quite like an AI to figure out what the geometry of the sun would have to be, and what the geometry of the lampshade would have to be to actually create the power distribution over the Earth's surface that we observe on a flat Earth.
I've actually thought about that a bit, and I think I have the best argument for that actually uses where I can actually put Occam's razor into it. So you all assume that that no two objects can be in the same position at one time, but if we disregard that, then you can make all sorts of weird models where the flat Earth might be possible.
Well, I would argue against that because firstly it's not an assumption. It is a very well-known thing.
Has that never ever stopped anyone?
I mean, it's called Pauli's exclusion. It's quite famous. But the question is you need to have a series of objects. So I have figured out what you would need for this distribution to have, around the equator, nice warm and limited sunshine as you deviate from the equator and all that, to actually explain the solar radiance across the surface of the Earth, figured out, yeah, you're going to need multiple suns, but you have to remember the condition is the sun needs to appear as if it is a sphere, and needs to appear as if there isn't some giant fucking lampshade around it, whilst at the same time producing that distribution.
And also, it needs to be able to actually go over the horizon.
Absolutely.
Figure that one out. Flat Earthers haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've kind of toyed with it to kind of figure out maybe there is something there. Maybe it could be done, but so far I kind of actually I think I was talking to Stringer News in my comments section on something I did on this topic, and I very confidently said, "Yeah, I'm sure I can do that," and I very quickly edited, "No, I don't think it's possible."
You know, I think that the only way in which the flat Earth could ever have a model is if light, right, works in mysterious ways. You know, really mysterious ways, like
bendy ways.
Yeah, like they always go on about bendy light, and I'm like, well, imagine how much it would have to bend to. You know, they say about the globe model using bendy light to have things go over the horizon. It's like, well, or to have things appear higher than they should. And it's like, imagine how much light would have to bend, right, to get the sun to go over the horizon. Well, we're talking bendy light to the extremes here.
Yeah,
I mean,
basically,
even for night to be possible, it would have to be a ridiculous amount of bendiness.
Yeah. Maybe that's just the reason why we have a bright sun. It's because light is bendy in such a way and makes it more intense in certain places than in other places. I don't know. All I know is that it's not what's his face's. I know it's not Flat Earth Aussie Jesus's. Illuminating the noble gases.
Oh yes, or there's plentiful noble gases, and yeah. Shall we get back to intelligence?
Yeah, even if it is artificial. Yeah, I was just having a quick look at this release strategy for the OpenAI, and it says something about publishing. It says we are not releasing the dataset training code or GPT-2 model weights, but because they don't want to. It says they're only releasing a much smaller version of GPT-2 along with sampling code. Because essentially they don't want anyone to use it for nefarious reasons.
Well, that makes sense. That's quite, it's quite responsible.
Yeah. So I think that the human responsibility is a thing that we'll have to consider when it comes to AI, and I think that's going to be the core sort of thing.
I think that's quite important. There needs to be transparency and oversight. I did kind of look into a few things. I didn't get around to reading it because it's quite a chunky academic essay. I was hoping to read it before going on, but yeah, it does talk about. It has quite a bit dedicated to, institutional competence. So we've got. There's legislature. There needs to be democratic government oversight, and then there have to be challenges addressed in government, and the fact that there's a distinct lack of expertise in government, and who's going to oversee this. And we've got different agencies, albeit non-government agencies or private companies. Well, to what extent can we trust them? And common law as well. To what extent can we trust the public to really make an informed decision about this? And
Yeah.
these are all challenges that we need to really figure out.
I think there's also the question of like, to which extent can we trust the, to which extent can we trust the politicians as well? But I want to
Well, absolutely, because history has shown that we can't.
copy image address. But I do like this this idea here. I'm just going to put it up on screen. Here we go. Humans are ruining the economy. I will give everyone a living wage of £1,436 a week. Vote for Democrobot this October, the first political party run by artificial intelligence.
There's a certain beauty to that, though, isn't there?
So, I think I basically what I think here with this, I think that it's decided this Democrobot has decided to just become Andrew Yang, I think. Except taking it to the extreme with £1,000 rather than £1,000 a week rather than a month. Actually, more than £1,000 a week. I used to be on board with Andrew Yang, but now I'm not. He's kind of, I'm really iffy about him.
So I have a question for you, Planarwalk. Have you heard about the red button paradox? And yeah, do you have any idea about how to solve it?
The red button paradox. Let me just search it up because I feel like I'm.
Okay, so it goes like this. We're living in the future. You have a household AI robot. This AI robot has been created with some values, how to value different actions, and it turns out it really likes doing what you tell it to. So you ask this robot to make a cup of coffee, and this robot now tramples over your baby because it's in the path of making coffee. Now, at this exact moment, you wish you had a big red button that you could click and the robot would be disabled. So far, so good. Now, the problem is, if this is a brilliant AI and can do whatever and it's super intelligent, it will know that you pressing the red button prevents it from making coffee, which it really likes to do. So it will stop you from pressing the button. Alternatively, we could give this red button a value so that the robot likes you pressing the button, in which case it will promptly press the button itself and commit suicide. So how do you make AI's value doing what you say if it contradicts the previous goals?
Yeah, so I think that when it comes to robots in this fashion, I think that the best way would have to go about it would have to be to have some sort of moral system in which I think one of the supposed laws of robotics, right, is, and 1 minute debunk said, is the answer implement the laws of robotics. So yeah, one of the laws of robotics I think is to I think it's to not harm humans.
Yeah, but that the laws of robotics are very much a sci-fi novel thing and not really implementable in any way. As
Well-
in what is considered harming a human. Say, if you are a doctor, is it harming a human to cut him open with a knife and removing his, I don't know, appendix?
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is, I think a lot of these, a lot of the, the Asimov's laws and everything were very much written at a time where this was at a time when we thought that AIs, an artificial intelligence beating someone at chess, that was a really impressive thing. Right, but actually, one of the issues is that it turns out all of these quite complex things, like chess games, are really easy for AI, but really simple things that we consider simple are actually really complicated.
Like moving around is
Opening a door, right? That was a huge achievement from General Dynamics to have an AI that was actually capable of finding a door and opening it. I mean, those little dog things are creepy as hell, but yeah, quite an achievement, right? And this is just walking up to a door, turning the door handle, opening it, and walking through. That was extremely complex. But so these laws, although they make good for a sci-fi thing, and they're great for drama. What becomes increasingly more apparent is that for an AI to be in a position where you have that red button, right? For it to want to prevent you from pushing that red button, it must have a sense of self-preservation. It must have a sense of self-awareness. And
No. It does not need that. It just needs to know that you pressing the button will prevent it in making you a cup of coffee.
Will it? I mean, yeah, you're right.
I suppose one way that you could go about this problem, right, is, I suppose one way you could go about it would be to have, if it, so with the red button, right? Let's say that if the red button gets destroyed, the AI will, the AI will die. Right? So if it tries to destroy the red button, the AI will die. If actually here, so actually having self-preservation is actually a good thing, right? If it kills something, it'll probably have something in it that goes, well, if I kill something, then they'll probably want to kill me, so therefore I shouldn't kill anyone. And this is probably beyond the scope of what well beyond the scope of what AIs can actually do these days. So this is purely hypothetical. So I think it comes down to a self-preservation thing. If I do anything that the human doesn't want me to, I'm going to I'll probably die. They'll probably press the red button, and if I go ahead and try and kill the human or stop that human from pressing the red button, then someone else is probably going to come along and try and press the red button. There's, they can't take out 7 billion humans, so the most optimal thing for that robot is to not kill any humans, because if it kills any humans, then humans will come along and kill the robot. So I think, but as I said, this is beyond what robots can do, and I mean, having robots like Tokieto is describing is beyond what robots can. Yeah, it's not beyond what robots can do, but it's to have a robot that would figure out, oh, there's this red button that I can press and it will kill me, is quite beyond what we can achieve with robots. So,
Yeah, I suppose the key point there is
second, Discord is reconnecting.
Okay.
Not Discord. OBS is reconnecting. So,
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's.
There you go.
So Mark Caesar says, I'm making the assumption that AI won't figure out how to improve its intelligence. I mean, yeah, it could figure out a way to improve its intelligence in the read button, but I think from a self-preservation standpoint, I think that it would be more likely that when it comes to the amount of humans that could stop this robot, that it's powerless to do anything about it. And I think if a robot starts trying to build up a nuclear arsenal or something to get rid of all humans that could stop it from making that.
Well, I think there's also, and this is a bit of my personal belief. This is more philosophical than I have any reason to absolutely assert that this is true. But there's a very good possibility that things like emotions, self-awareness, and compassion, most of all, are fundamental functions of intelligence, and by all intents and all the evidence that we see, that it's not even to the human intelligence that even less intelligent animals already showed these traits, right? And that there is this fundamental component, that compassion, that's probably, I don't know, but it could very well be an emergent property of intelligence. And if that is the case, then actually we haven't got as much to worry about, because then we would have an AI that would seek to coexist rather than dominate.
Yeah.
That would be very nice, but I have to point out that we know the condition of what's that called in English? Being a psychopath.
Yes.
Where you basically have no compassion. So apparently you are able to be intelligent without having compassion.
I think that it really comes down to if AI has morals, and sometimes for some tasks it's better for AI to not to have morals, but we're really got to ask, well, what would be the task of these AI? Like, if you've got an AI that you can ask to make coffee, generally these AI are actually going to be optimized for their particular task. So if you've got an AI that makes coffee for you, it probably isn't going to have the capacity to do anything apart from make coffee. You may have
That's if we take the current kind of limitations of AI, where we have a very specific AI which is trained to do a task, but you can have a general AI that can do something. But I think there's also a very important point, right? I mean, we're all trained by sci-fi movies and stuff to think of AI like androids.
Yeah.
Right? And why would we want to do that? I mean,
sex robots.
We're a pretty fucking good design. Yeah, okay, sex robots, but
that's the only reason.
And let's be very clear. That is a major selling point, and as with all things electronical, the porn industry will have their say in how we do stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's going to be a very large factor in determining how AI is, if we ever were to make androids, right? A very important determining factor in its adoption is going to be, can you fuck it?
I mean, that's one reason why someone says this is one person that made this thing about why VR hasn't taken off. Very, very hilarious stand-up routine, and he says, VR is just too immersive for VR for people to adopt VR as a way to watch porn.
Okay. I can imagine
Not
where the
going to
guy
comment
goes.
on
It's
that.
Essentially, he says about, you've got to be if your wife goes out, right, you've got to be absolutely certain that that she's not going to be back within,
Yeah.
she might, if she goes out to work, right, she might be back within half an hour because they didn't need her at work. You don't know that's not going to happen, and she walks in on you, and you're not going to have any warning.
Yeah.
So that's the point that he makes. But it's a really good stand-up routine. I highly suggest people go watch it.
On the other end of the spectrum, if anyone out there is owning a VR headset, you should search for things not to do with your things you should never do with your VR headset. Look up that and have fun.
I know one thing that I should never do with a VR headset. Here's for everyone for everyone who's wondering, one thing you should never do with a VR headset, right? And it's particularly with the Vive ones, the ones that have the little controllers that you have one in each hand. Never be in a room that has people around you and get too immersed in throwing balls. I nearly hit someone with one of these controllers because I couldn't see these people. All I knew is that I had two controllers in my hand, and I was able to pick up a ball and throw it, and apparently someone actually had to move out of the way. So Pete Shea is wondering how to get in. You just have to join the stream on the Discord server.
I think you may need a link to the Discord server.
Yeah, he just joined. Like, this person called J Swiss Dodo joined, and you just have to join the chat that everyone else is in. He's already in there, but I'll post the Discord link in the chat again if he wants to join, if he hasn't. But Kitsune Cavalier. Things you should never do with a VR headset. Dress up as a Twinkie and do reaction videos about flat earthers. 100% agree there.
Well, I think also there's actually a more serious point about why I feel that VR headsets don't really take off. It's first-person shooters. All right, it's simple as that. There's quite a limitation to what you can do with these games, and just having a controller in your hand and looking at a screen, yeah, that works very well for a first-person shooter or an RPG game. But if you have the VR headset on your head, it's like you've got this immersive world, but you're not physically walking, right? So,
one thing that I'd like.
Actually.
Oh, continue.
There are actually modes of walking for games where you actually have to swing your arms around. So there are certain games where you don't use your feet, but you are very physically engaged in walking.
Oh, so it doesn't feel like you're just staying in one. So it doesn't feel as much like you're staying in one place, so you don't get as much motion sickness, is it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't suffer from motion sickness, but I imagine that's the reason.
Okay. One thing that I was going to say about VR, but I forgot. Fuck. And it's gone. There's something about first person. Oh, I remember it now. One thing that I'd actually like to do if I had the money, right, is I'd like to build like a room, which has it's not VR, but it's more of it's more of something that you'd have like this sword that's not really a sword, but you can hit people with. And be able to face off against someone else that has the sword, and it would be more of something. You'd wear some sort of suit, or there would be some AI that would be able to tell when you take too much damage and die or something. And I think
Yeah, I mean, I think VR could work if if you've got, say, a large building where you've got several, if you have like a physical space, and that is reflected in your actual VR, and you could move around in that physical space and actually then have a competitive game. I mean, that could quite work, but then essentially what you're doing is you're playing laser tag with VR goggles on, and it could be quite fun.
Yeah, I think that I still want to implement my idea one day. Just a large room where you can fight against other people with swords, and you got to try and there could also be some kind of shield in there, right? So you can pick up your shield, defend against their attack, and it'd be. I'd love that. I used to love playing with Nerf guns as a kid, right?
Yeah, but for me, I'm kind of like, well, yeah, that's great, but paintball, can't do that.
Yeah, this wouldn't be quite so paintball-y, although I do like paintball, I must say. This would be
good fun.
This would be more. You have swords, and these swords would probably have some kind of foam on it, and then you'd pick one up. You'd be able to pick up a shield and
it could be fun. Yeah. It could be fun, actually. That sounds like a good one, but lots of investment required. But
great. It's a great way to train for
unfeasible.
It's a great way to train for the zombie apocalypse.
Absolutely.
Are you familiar with the Bionic Dance? She plays a VR game where you're competing against someone and throwing things at them, similar to what you suggested. I think I've heard of Bionic Dance. Maybe.
So you're not reading the comment above that?
Sex Dungeon.
Tomorrow wants the Sex Dungeon. Planarwalk Games presents.
As a real quick side note, one thing, production of I will probably have to delay the Kickstarter by maybe a few days. It's just because Fight the Flat Earth is on vacation and doesn't get back until after the 15th. I think he gets back on the 16th, so I'll probably have to delay the Kickstarter releasing just by a few days.
Why is he necessary for the Kickstarter? Just curious.
It's just so that he can sign a few legal things.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not a lawyer, but I have written up a legal document, and essentially, if he agrees with that legal document, we'll both sign it, and then we can put the Kickstarter up and everything.
I did not know that he was involved with the game, so it's interesting.
Yeah, he's working on the book. So essentially, it's both a book and a video game, and also apparently he's been working on like a prologue to the book while he's been on vacation on the beach or something like that, which I imagine would be fun. I can
man.
Yeah, although honestly, if I was on the beach, right, I'd probably be playing my guitar. In fact, that's what I was doing last year when I went to the beach, right? I would essentially go to the beach with a guitar and play the guitar.
Yeah, if I were on the beach, I'd be too drunk to write a book.
There were a few times when I got when I had a bit of alcohol near the beach.
The stream is hung up for some reason. There it goes. It's back.
Okay. I'm just trying to remember one thing that I did last. I think it was last year or something. Oh yeah, Aussie beer is crap.
Yeah, it is.
You don't like Foster's?
No, Australians don't like Fosters, in fairness. So
I'm sure they
if the
don't.
Australians don't approve of Fosters, then yeah, fuck it. But
I'm sure they
to be
hated
honest,
it
I
the
actually
first
quite-
time the first time they heard that slogan. They probably hated it to death. Australian for
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah,
Fuck
no, to
outta
be
here,
honest,
mate.
I quite enjoy Fosters, but that's
I
because
don't mind it. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It is light as it is really light. So you could just
And it's
drink
refreshing
it.
too.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's refreshing. It's light. You can drink it for hours and hours and hours and not get drunk.
I
You
just don't
stay on
like
this nice mellow level.
the only beer I really just don't like, and I'm hesitant to even call it a beer, is Coors Light. That is water.
I personally,
They always tell you how cold it is. I don't give a fuck how cold it is. How does it taste good? No. Does it get you drunk? No. Next.
I personally don't like beer. I prefer vodka. Comrade.
You said you don't like beer, Planarwalk?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of beer.
Okay, you gotta drink a few of them. Get
I-
that tongue. You gotta work the taste out.
All right, well, fine
It's an
people.
acquired taste for sure.
Fine people. I'm gonna shoot off, and I'm going to drink some more beer. And it's been a good chat.
Well,
All right, see ya.
all right, man.
I wonder
Thanks
if
for
we're
joining
gonna-
I'll
us.
catch you all later.
Wonder if we're gonna get
Yeah.
Pete Shea joining, because Pete Shea, he joined the Discord server, but I've tried to tell him, look, he just joined the stream chat, and
I think somebody just no, that was him leaving. Sorry.
um,
Pete Shea, are you hung up somewhere, man?
I'm also going to leave you guys here. It's getting late, but it
How
has
dare
been
you.
very fun.
okay. So if Pete Shea, you got 5 minutes. I should also mention that my last video was actually my last video I didn't.
Monetized, huh?
Yeah, it was initially demonetized, but then it got monetized because it it said that confirmed by manual review to be eligible for monetization, or something. Your monetization status monetized confirmed by manual review.
That's exciting. Good.
I prefer, but I prefer when it comes to beer. I prefer vodka over beer when it comes to alcohol. There is one thing that I do like, right? So there is this wine that I get. It's all I need one bottle, right? One bottle of this particular type of wine. I don't know how many drinks it is. I don't care how many drinks it is, but it gets me drunk enough where I'm not going to have a hangover the next day, but I'm going to be tipsy, right? If I have this type of beer.
Gotcha.
Not beer. I mean wine.
Wine. I gotcha.
Yeah. And it's basically $10, and I can buy this. I can buy this wine. It's sparkling type of wine, and it. But yeah, I found that out last year. After going to the guitar, with my guitar to the beach. So.
You went to the beach with your guitar trying to pick up some ladies?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got
Girls like a guy with a guitar, don't they?
sometimes.
Not all the time, man.
I
I
suppose
don't
it,
even think you have to know how to play it. Just sit there with a guitar in your hand and somebody's going to come talk to you.
oh yeah, even like when busking, right? I can play the guitar on the street, and I'll always have people come up and talk with me. Sometimes I won't understand what they're going on about, and sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm screwing up playing the guitar because you're trying to talk to me. I don't think
Understandable.
I don't think Pete Shea is going to join for some reason.
He
Maybe-
might be having trouble finding the place.
Maybe he's, yeah. As I said, Flat Earthers for some reason have really a lot of trouble trying to get in.
Oh, is he a flat earther?
Yeah.
What's your status?
Wait, what's
I
the?
just asked him if he was still planning to come. He might be stuck somewhere, or I don't know. He would have to accept your server rules. He might not be getting that. Let me go in your server and see if he populates when I put that Peach. Well, I wonder what his Discord name is.
I just noticed something. So I'm just
JC Sweet Dodo. I'm listening. I'm sorry, Pete. Go ahead.
yeah, I just noticed that tomorrow there's cricket. The final of the Cricket World Cup is going to be New Zealand versus England.
Uh-oh.
I just received a message on Discord. Didn't they wasn't it a year ago or no, 3 years ago or something? They got into the semi-finals against Australia for the first time. I think they're playing against South Africa or something in the Cricket World Cup, and then I think
He isn't on the place.
I think this is 3 or 4 years ago. It was New Zealand versus South Africa or something, and it was world history because neither of them had made it to the final before, and then New Zealand won and made it to New Zealand made it to the final, and I think it was by the skin of our teeth or something. So we made it to the final. And then after that, we went up against Australia and lost badly. Holy shit, did New Zealand lose badly?
Dora said, "Can somebody explain cricket to us?" I certainly can.
All I know about cricket is that you have a bat and you hit the ball, and you got to make sure that the ball doesn't hit the wickets. Essentially, one team is trying to make the ball hit the wickets, and another team is trying to make the ball not hit the wickets.
And can't games go on for days if they do?
I do think there's a certain amount of time there's a certain amount of throws that each team can have before, which is why you usually get something like 200. You can get something like 200 points, but yeah, by the looks of it, New Zealand is probably going to win tomorrow because.
At least they made it to that game.
I'm just looking at the semi-finals and the scores, right? So New Zealand got 239 overs.
5 days test match, Pete Bramble says.
And it was and you got more points than England did. Yeah, World Cup, and it's World Cup, is 50 overs, so only 1 day. So yeah, I don't think Pete Shea is going to join. New Zealand.
I think he checked it out, turned into butter.
Yeah, and I mean it's not like you'd add anything useful to the conversation.
Yeah, probably not. Shots fired.
It's gonna be New Zealand. It's gonna be the one of. I mean, we've gotten to the finals. I think it's 2 World Cups in a row, right? So it's gonna be New Zealand.
Pete, you got a problem with New Zealand, buddy?
I don't think he has a problem with it. He's just patriotic to his country.
I'm just, man, I hate nationalism, don't you?
I mean, New Zealand is better than every other country in the world, but I mean, sure, yeah, I hate nationalism.
You said that. I don't like nationalism. I don't think that any place is better than others. Everybody's got their shit that stinks.
Yeah, I'll admit that I'll admit that New Zealand has its problems. Mainly, the main problem with New Zealand is being
All the damn Kiwis.
no, is being on the middle of this giant fucking fault line. Although
Y'all are gonna fall in at some point, huh?
yeah, although Japan has that same problem, so
Yes, it does. Japan, though, they'll just invent some boosters or something, and the whole island will lift up off the ground, out of the water. Go land somewhere else.
But yeah, so before I head off, I'm just going to mention about my game. Make sure you support that.
Flurfia.
Yeah, Flurfia. Let me just... One thing I like to do...
Jimbojo, most definitely New Zealand over Syria.
Oh, when I type in P, porn doesn't come up. That's good. Oh, this looks different to how it usually looks. So, yeah, if you want to support me, you can... The best way is on Patreon. I mean, you can always become a member and or super chats. That's always a way, but we're ending up the stream, so it's much better to go to Patreon, and that way I can be more confident that I'm going to make enough money to survive next month. Especially if I get something like $300 on Patreon, then that would be good. If I had that much money...
Yeah, who's going to be our first $300 Patreon? No, I'm just kidding.
I've got two $50 patrons. Doesn't
Fight the Flat Earth and who? Stringer?
No, not Stringer. It's Fight the Flat Earth.
Stringer's a 20, right, with me?
No, Stringer is actually 5.
Okay.
So at 50, I've got Fight the Flat Earth and Stantrucker.
Stantrucker.
Yeah, I mean you can always look in the description. It says all my Patreons that are $5 or more. So I'm thinking of having a few Patreon exclusive things coming up. Just whenever I get around to it, though. So yeah. And keep a lookout for news about Flurfy. I'm going to be, as I said, I've been making good progress. I'll probably have to delay it a few days, and once I've gotten the logo done, I'll make a t-shirt with the logo of it. Hey, Rider of Dinosaurs, how's it going? And
Hey, Ryder.
And so yeah, I always like to give a little bit of an update on what I've been working on. Last night I implemented announcements. So whenever you got any kind of treasure from picking up something, it comes up with a little announcement saying, pebble obtained, or obtained pebble, or received $5 or something.
Nothing wrong with that.
So yeah, I need to make more announcements like
please don't forget to join the Discord server.
I was meaning in the game, but yeah, don't forget to join the Discord server. If we get up to a certain amount, I'll have religious debates. So people can come and shill for their religion, and I'll say your religion's wrong. Unless you can convince me that there's enough evidence for your religion, in which case, hail whatever god that is.
That's just not going to happen, though, is it?
I mean, there could be good evidence for religion. I just haven't seen it.
Yeah, I just don't think it exists, bro.
Yeah, I don't think it exists, but I could just be monumentally
To each their own, though.
Yeah. But anyway, let me switch to the end card. End card? Here we go. Anyway, leave a like and subscribe if you liked that stream. Leave a comment of whatever kind of debate you'd like me to have. Next week it won't be a debate, but it will be a planner talk with and I'm planning to get... I've talked to Landon Knoll and Steve McRae. That should be fun.
Indeed.
And that will be about nuclear power. I've got some questions about that, so that should be good. But anyway, I will see you in the next stream. Between you and me, thank you for watching. Why are people still in the chat? I don't know. Anyway.